I'm looking forward to building on, I guess, the progress that I've made even during lockdown. Some good things have happened with the business, some bad things have happened, but the good things that have happened, they've then opened new doors as well. So it's like, all right, then let's go and see how far we can take this. Even though we're going back to normal, it's like a new normal, isn't it? And it's a slightly different world that we're going to live in. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Looking forward to it.
Simon Hartley's one of our really good friends. We've worked with him loads of times over the past few years, mainly filming conference-style events and retreats, not just in the UK, but across the world. And for that reason, I think lockdown was a big concern for him right at the start, by his own admission, because a lot of his time and a lot of his kind of regular work was coming from being there in person, in the room with people, delivering keynotes and presentations and stuff.
That was something that just had to stop, obviously, and I think that was probably quite hard, but we know that he's such a positive person and he reflected on it really well, and he changed the way he worked very quickly too, and to provide them things online, and he's still doing that to this day.
He's a tenacious guy, Simon, primarily because he's learnt from people like that. He's spoken with so many world-class people, and just that I have so much respect for not only his experience that he's amassed, but just his wealth of knowledge, really. And I think that he's one of those guys where something like a lockdown could come along and knock him back, but it's not going to stop him.
So pre-lockdown, a standard week probably had me on the road 3 days a week, delivering sessions with groups of business leaders, occasionally with athletes and sports teams. I would go in, we would set up a workshop, it might be a half day or a day workshop, with a specific topic, and we would probably have maybe 6 or 7 workshops lined up to do over the course of the year or 6 months, working our way through helping them develop their mindset and performance. We kicked off the year, I had a trip out to New York, I was in Manhattan for 24 hours delivering a session, flew back again. A lot of the work was obviously face-to-face with people. I was helping teams, I was helping individuals, flying up and down the country, a lot of trips to London, all those sorts of things. It possibly was going to be our biggest year ever. In fact, I think March was probably our biggest month ever. And so if you kind of project forward, I was looking at a lot of new projects, a lot of bigger corporate leadership development projects. And so, yeah, it looked like a very, very good year. It was shaping up to be a very good year.
Lockdown helped a lot of people realise that we should be looking towards more local businesses to shop at, and to kind of get that the heart back into shopping more locally. And this is something that Trina was doing, who we went to interview. She had created an app called Swish for It, which was kind of like a wish list, but then reflecting during lockdown also helped her realise that the focus should also be turned onto much more local businesses, so that people could make them wish lists and have better experiences at local places and local shops.
2020 was our first year of launch. What we wanted from 2020 was to be able to engage lots of different shoppers and be able to communicate the different needs and benefits that we could offer to them. And that was going to involve a lot of marketing. We were looking at getting investment throughout the year to enable the growth of the platform. My biggest challenge was, obviously, I was a startup business, and so it was actually being able to communicate my message to as many people as I wanted to. Being quite a unique platform and service, there was an educational element there as well, in terms of educating people on how it worked and the benefits, that it could offer to their life in terms of shopping, and the efficiencies that it could bring in terms of shopping online.
It was shaping up to be really busy, yeah. I had lots of things in the pipeline and lots of things which had been planned for a very long time as well.
Dom Hodgson, my longest standing client and a super good friend of mine. Dom is a really cool guy. He's hilarious, he's very outspoken, he makes no apologies for who he is and his opinions and stuff. And as a result of that, he has acquired a certain notoriety online. I've learned so much from him over the years. He's passed down a lot of his learnings on marketing and business and attitude towards business. It's all kind of filtered down to me, which I'm eternally grateful for. He's just a lovely guy. Dom is extremely determined, and he's a really hard grafter as well. Again, he was really honest about how the lockdown had affected his situation.
I have two main strands to my business. One is the dog walking and boarding side of the business, and then the other is me coaching other pet business owners with their business. After Christmas is when we start to busy up with both sides of the business, really. So back then we would have been planning and taking bookings for home boarding for the dogs, and then at the same time as that, I had a big event planned for May where pet business owners from all over the world were going to come and descend on Sunderland, and we were going to have a big 3-day conference. So that was my plans pre-lockdown.
2020 was looking to be probably the best year that I'd experienced, I think, from starting this journey.
When we spoke to Amy Fettis, this was quite a few months after we had first started making Wreck the Lockdown. So naturally things had progressed quite a bit by then, restrictions had eased, things were still very uncertain, and so Amy's experiences that she shared with us were very different. She had a different set of stories to tell anyway than she would have if we spoke to her quite early on, which was interesting.
I started a brand, an athleisure brand, 4 years ago now. In doing that, I learned a huge amount about how to actually create new clothing products, and that has led quite neatly into me now providing the service to clients who have their own brands or want to develop their own clothing collections. And we now focus our time pretty much full-time on doing that white label service to for clients. From a trading point of view, the beginning of March, I just didn't know what had happened. We'd had a really solid start to the year. We were super busy, and then March came and it was just flat, and I didn't understand. I was chatting to some of my peers, who own businesses, and saying like, what are you experiencing? And everyone across the board was the same. Trade had just dropped off a cliff edge.
The world stopped, and nobody knew what the future was going to look like.
During the week before, I'd been down to London to see a client. All of a sudden, it started to get very quiet. I think there were 2 people in the train carriage. Interestingly, I had a conversation with my client, I think it was on Wednesday, and we were preparing a plan of action for April and May. He was very, very buoyant. It was all about growth. It was all about developing the leadership team. And literally a week later, he phoned me and he said he'd probably let, I think it was 8 or 9 people go.
I felt numb for a while, and then the major concern is for like your family, and your parents and your close friends, and when you're going to see them again, all that kind of thing.
In the first couple of weeks, honestly, I think there was just panic and lots of very, very kind of logistical concerns. How do we manage cash flow? How do we get people working from home? How do we make sure they're all set up and they've got their computers and they can log into Wi-Fi and all of that sort of stuff? And it took, I think, a couple of weeks just for the dust to settle. Bizarrely, at that time, I was starting to think there are some real opportunities here and we need to keep our eyes open and look for those opportunities.
When the lockdown actually was announced, I think for me, I actually let out a sigh of relief, because I thought, it's not just me, this is something quite big. The way that my business is already structured, because my team members are very skilled, they have their own home studios, so we'd already started to put contingency measures into place for them working from home, and we were starting to move towards that kind of business model anyway.
It was a real opportunity actually for me to be able to pause and reflect on the business. It'd been very fast paced, and we'd had a lot of interest from external people, from the retail sector, from when we launched, in terms of the benefits and the way the platform and the technology could be used. For me personally, it provided a real opportunity to be able to pause and reflect on the business and to see what way forward, what the way forward looked like.
There is opportunities for people out there, but I think you've got to be You've got to be nimble, you've got to be alive to them. Because I've positioned myself as somebody who helps other people with their business, I felt like I had like a moral responsibility to be there for them, you know, to try and to help them to get through it as well. So, well, they've obviously had their side of the business completely stopped as well. All of the dog groomers that I've helped, they've been closed, but then the dog trainers, that they obviously had the opportunity to switch to online. So that was a big opportunity for me, was to say, right, this is how you can do it quickly and easily, so you can maintain those relationships that you have and maintain clients as well, really. And yeah, we've managed to do that.
I started to share some posts on social media asking, at the end of this, when you come out the other end, what's going to make you say, if it wasn't for this pandemic, I would never have ... If it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have realised, I wouldn't have done, I wouldn't have innovated. What are those things?
I think one of the greatest opportunities is to invest time into what I call the heavy thinking. It's that thinking that normally we say we haven't got time for. What will actually allow you to emerge stronger?
So I started having great conversations with clients about the challenges, and then starting to piece together some offerings to them that could really help them with those challenges. To start with, it was on the basis that, look, you know, we're not charging for this stuff, we just want to help. And then gradually we started to build those into a bit more of a kind of commercial offering.
I noticed a big change in the consumers' shopping habits, where there's always been an increasing trend for people to want to shop independent. That seemed to be completely exacerbated by what was happening with lockdown. And one of the factors was driven by the fact that the larger retailers were unable to fulfill a lot of even online delivery at that time. And so they had to completely close their operations while they worked out their way forward and how they could do that safely for their staff. People were seeing the independents, the local food producers and, you know, the local suppliers and the independent people that could actually fulfill, you know, the needs of the nation, really. And I think that really sort of drove the desire to be able to support the independents.
My clients have been telling me that they hadn't realised how much we were reliant on the Far East until this happened. That has been a big eye-opener. I think we saw it on a national scale with the PPE crisis, where it suddenly came to light that we were buying everything from big suppliers outside of the UK. And so when they weren't able to supply, we obviously had a national shortage. That also applies to clothing, to fashion, athleisure, casual clothing, which is the sector that me and my clients operate in. Their supply chains were cut off or slowed down. Hence, we picked up the small batch production because my clients were looking for anything that they could make that was close to home, that they could manage, that they had total transparency on supply chain, and that's where my adaptation obviously kicked in to support them, because with our remote satellite working model, we could still trade. We weren't all in a factory or jammed in together, because we had the space and the spaces to allow that. Where a lot of people weren't able to supply, we could. So I think it was a saving grace for a lot of my clients.
The local clients they've all pretty much picked up again from where we left off. So that's been fantastic. And we did make a big effort to maintain contact with them. Just generally keep the communication going. Just even asking them how they were. From the other side of the business as well, the feedback that I've had from the people that I'm helping has been that the help has helped. And it's been tough without a doubt. But I think a lot of them have benefited obviously from the business advice I'm giving, but a lot of them have benefited just from the community, that we've created, and so everyone's kind of been there for each other. I've got a lot out of that as well, to be honest. Just from having the community, even though it was online, you still can foster really close relationships with people, and I do feel like I'm invested in their business, and they feel like they're invested in mine. So yeah, we've all kind of pulled each other through it.
The challenge hasn't changed, but what I have found is the way that I have adapted the platform to engage more with the independent retailers, that is giving a purpose for the customers to go and look at the site, and from that point we can then engage with them better to be able to communicate the benefits and the additional uses and functionality beyond the brand discovery and the shopping with those independent retailers.
So the feedback's been very positive. Vocally, I hear lots of people saying, that's really, really helpful. That's exactly what I needed right now. I gain more of a sense of feedback by understanding the value and the impact it's had on those people. And I look at whether they come back for more, whether they're looking for more help afterwards. And I think I would describe it probably as just really kind of holding each other's hands and working through this together, having an open conversation so that we can understand exactly what you need and how we can help. And there is no blueprint, there is no template to work from, so let's go find a solution that fits.
It's funny how when things are forced upon you, you suddenly realise how simple and easy and brilliant it is. And do we all need to be here all together all the time? No. And I don't think we'll rush back to that. Obviously this is the central hub. This is where I am most of the time. This is where all the fabric is, where the machines are. So of course this is where we all kind of congregate. Do we need to be here? No. So what we are going to continue to do is to work from home wherever possible. I've done it myself, so I'm not coming into the studio as many days a week as I was previously, because I found that having 2 days working from home was really good for both my mental and my physical health, for the well-being of the team as well. As if they don't need to be here, then they don't need to be here. If they can do the work from home and be comfortable and not have the commute and the expenses that go with it, then great. So that's a positive that I can definitely take out of this, and I think a lot of people have started to question some of the practices that we considered to be normal before, and really, were they making any sense? Possibly not.
It's reiterated to me again the whole how important it is to have regular communications with your clients, because myself and a lot of the guys who I coach as well, because we've got this constant communication going with emails, texts, sending direct mail to people as well. They've basically been able to pick up virtually from where they left off with their business now. Whereas I know that a lot of people who haven't had that kind of communication, where they've just been seen as an average service provider, they've been dropped, and which is very sad, but it highlights the importance of communicating really with your clients.
We held a conference a couple of years ago in 2018, and the theme of it was, how do you navigate the unknown? So we didn't know it was COVID. We didn't know it was going to be a pandemic, but I was pretty sure there was going to be something. I'm also pretty sure now that the challenges haven't ended. In fact, they're going to come, and they're going to come thicker and faster during the next few years. So it's really helping people gear up for that. And I think for lots of people, this has just been a trigger for timing. It's been a catalyst for things. I think many more people are coming out the back end of it saying we need to be more resilient for things like this. It might not be a pandemic next time, but there's likely to be something massive. How do we make sure we're armed for it?
What lockdown brought was change, a lot of change, but with any change, there is opportunity. What lockdown has really taught me is that in every challenge and change, there is opportunity, and it's just about looking at a situation and seeing where the opportunity is. And I think that if you're willing to adapt and look at things differently, there always is the opportunity to do things differently.
I think people have rediscovered the joy of a stress-free shop in a smaller business. All these small retailers selling essential products have really kind of upped their game and risen to the challenge. All being well, people are going to remember that.
I've seen websites being thrown up overnight. People started developing, started looking at new avenues, started looking at tools like ours, the Roam Local app. It brought that focus of digital evolution forward by at least 5 to 7 years.